coming out tonight. Before we get started, I want to make a reminder for everyone to turn their cell phone off. We don't want it to be a disruption during the course of the debate. So before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the organization that is hosting this debate. It is called Strive, and it's an organization that was started 2 years ago. And the purpose of Strive is to give students a voice in education. Strive stands for Students Reinvesting in a Valuable Education. And what we work to do is to enhance communication within the district, to make sure students' voices are being heard, and to make sure our questions are being asked and that we're being taken into account during decision making. So we encourage all of the high schoolers in the audience to stop by one of our meetings. We have another meeting tomorrow after school in Mrs. Budnick's room. So please stop by anytime. We welcome all input. So the debate format for tonight, there's going to be kind of 3 parts. We're going to start with some opening statements from each of the candidates. They will all introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their background, about why they're running for school board. And then after that, we move on to a question portion. Each candidate will be given 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer each question. There are currently 11 questions. And at the end of this, there will be closing statements given by each candidate, and they will have 1 minute to give their closing statement. Now, something we've decided to do this year is if during the debate you as a community member have a question that you would like us to include, we have paper outside the door and you can write down your question and we'll sift through them during the debate and then add them on if it's something we haven't covered or if it's something the candidates haven't brought up in the debate. We are going to have breaks approximately every half hour. They're going to be 3-minute breaks, so if you'd like to take the time to go out and write down a question, we would definitely encourage that. So with that, we would like to get started. So if our first candidate could introduce ourselves.
Can you hear me? Great. Well, thank you all for coming out. There's a lot of other events going on tonight that are also important. So I'm glad you took the time to come out here to listen to your potential school board candidates. Also want to thank Strive, particularly Isabella Procaccini and Natalie Wysocki for taking their time to organize this in their senior year. I'm sure they're very busy. As you all know, or a lot of you know, my son Aaron Mukherjee graduated from Saline High School last year. He was a senior here. But this debate tonight, or this election for school board, is not about my kid or your kid. It's about all of our kids. And I'm glad that you've taken the time to come out today to see who would be the 2 best candidates out of the 4 of us who would be able to fulfill and secure a bright future for your kids. I feel that I'm in a very good position as a candidate for school board, having been in the community for several years, having a thriving practice here in town. I'm a psychologist and a small business owner, and through my practice I work with many students and families on a daily basis, very closely. As a small business owner with a service-oriented business, I also understand the balance between financial sustainability and quality of service, and I hope to be able to speak about that if I'm on the school board. And I also have my educational background, which I want to highlight as a doctoral person in counseling, as well as a minor in educational psychology, gives me a lot of insight into educational concerns. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that I am a very strong advocate of public education, and even stronger now that I've seen the results that public education can bring. Thank you.
My name is Diane Freeze, and I am a community member. I've lived in the community for 33 years. My husband and I are both retired educators, long-time educators. Let's see, we have two nephews and a niece who have either graduated from the Saline schools or are in the process of going to school here. And the schools have prepared all of my family members with a wonderful stepping off point into their adult lives. I believe that what distinguishes me as a candidate in this election is a lifelong commitment to public education and a real understanding of human growth and development. As a special educator, I've learned much about varied learning styles and educating every student in the community. As a teacher consultant, I have had years of experience in problem solving and collaborating with teachers, administrators, parents, and students toward the better education of all students. Saline community has a long and proud history of supporting public education, exemplified by our beautiful facilities and the fine collection of staff members and community support groups, such as the Saline Foundation. The tenor of the conversation around education has taken on a troubling tone in the last number of years, and I have long believed that public education is at the heart of the success of our country, our community, and the middle class. I wish to become an agent for collaboration and to add an experienced, respectful voice to the conversation around issues currently facing our schools and community. I believe I can help the board and the community to find practical solutions to the issues we face in an accepting and positive environment. The board has given laser focus onto financial solutions in our system. I would like to add the same kind of laser focus on resolving educational and social issues. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Delhay. I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I would like to thank Strive for giving us this opportunity to speak in front of all of you. I've lived in this school district for 15 years. I have 2 children in the district, a sophomore at the high school and a 6th grader at the middle school. I'm here because I want to help. That's what I do. I've been involved with the school since my kids were in kindergarten. I was a room parent, I was involved in the PTA, I did fundraising, so it's very important to me. I consider us very lucky to live in the district that we do and to have the school system that we do. And it's very important to me that we are able to continue the quality of education that we have today. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Heineck. I'd also like to thank everyone that was involved in putting this event on. We've lived in the district for 18 years. I have 2 Saline High School graduates, Sarah and Christopher, and I have a junior, Danielle, in the high school right now, and a freshman son, Josh. I did serve on the board from 2006 to 2010 priorly. And I used to say back then that well, the standard joke was, oh, it's only 2 meetings a week. At least Slauson knows that when I was recruited the first time. But school board's a lot of work, and I came to appreciate my school board job more so than I did my regular job that I pays the bills at night. But I think it's important in the last couple of years we've made a lot of difficult decisions in the district. There's been a little bit of turmoil. The state hasn't exactly played fair with us, but we've persevered and we're moving forward. And Karen and I sat down, if you get one of our brochures, and came up with the INVEST theme. And it's not just a campaign theme. We think that it's time to reinvigorate the city, the stakeholders, and invest back in Saline area schools. We have a big future here. We can't rest on our laurels anymore. We need to push ahead. And I think I'd be a very good part of that solution. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Dane Jernan. I'm a senior at the high school. I'm just going to give you a quick update on how the questions are going to be answered first. The questions are going to be asked in rotation. The first question, which I have, will be answered first by Mrs. Freeze, and then it'll go to Mrs. Delany, and so on. And the next question, which will be asked by Amanda, will first be answered by Mrs. Delhy, and then on. So just on that. So the first question is, in your opinion, what's the role of a school board member? What do you see yourself doing in that role?
Okay, thank you. I believe that the role of a school board member, one of the roles, is to act as a liaison or a community conduit between the community and the school system. I know it is also to oversee school policy and to adopt a budget. I think it is also helpful to give feedback to the superintendent and support in accomplishing his goals in an efficient and productive manner. I'd also like to, as my part on the school board, if I am chosen to be a member, I'd like to help maintain the board's focus on its established goals and to guard against unnecessary distractions.
I see the role of a board member as the board is to serve as a policy-making body. I also think it's important that board members are always out advocating for the school district. It's very important to be out there marketing and keeping people aware of what's going on in the district at all times.
You know, I think school board sets the tone and direction of the district. They are the front-facing body that usually will get more attention, good or bad. So I think that tone and direction needs to be consistent and collaborative amongst the board without. I mean, discussion's always good at the board table, but sometimes this past year, a couple of people told me, "You're running for board again? Are you crazy?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm crazy like a fox because I think it needs a little help, and I think I can do that." Policy making is the major function of the board, and they need to be aware of that. They need to be out in the community. They need to listen to the stakeholders. So they have many roles, but primarily cheerleader for the district.
Thank you for that question. I think there has been a lot of controversy over this issue in recent times. What exactly is the role of the school board and what is the role of each member? I believe that the primary role of the school board as a whole is a group of committed citizens to help form policy that will guide the school district and help it fulfill its shared vision. And I would like to step into this role. I've been in many other roles with the school district as a volunteer, as a parent, as an advocate on other boards for mental health awareness. But as a school board member, I would think it very important that the school board or the school board member try to keep the board's focus on the issues that are the educational issues particularly, and the climate issues that are very important to the education and the quality of education being provided by the school district. And in order to do this, school board members definitely would need to educate and inform themselves, as well as work collaboratively and communicate with community members, parents, teachers, staff, all of the above, to realize the common vision.
Hi, my name is Amanda Fitz, and I'm a senior at Saline High School, and my question is, what dynamics do you feel constitute a healthy learning environment? Thank you.
That's a really good question. I think it's very important that students feel valued and appreciated. I think it's very important that they're able to have a voice and speak for what they believe in. I think knowing that and knowing you have that freedom and ability in the classroom to be yourself and speak for yourself and what you believe in makes a difference. I think it helps. I went to private schools, and I went actually to an all-girls school. And I'm not advocating that we should switch to all-girls, all-boys by any means, it would be, but there was a freedom to that I think led to, it opens your mind to what's important in education when you're not dealing with other issues. So I think it's very important to have that comfort level. I think that comes from the board all the way down.
You know, every teacher and every student has their own special dynamic. I used to get kind of out at the bus stop. Sometimes the parents would go, oh, that teacher's no good, oh, that one's no good, but it might not have been good for their child, but another child and that teacher may, have a different kind of bond or a different kind of relationship that works. And I think that's important, and I think the teachers should feel that they're valued and they're treated fairly by the district. And I think the kids should feel that they're valued, their opinions are valued. We had a meeting with the Spectrum group, and they pointed out some things that go on, in the high school, and it's kind of hard to figure out. I mean, high school really hasn't changed since I was in high school eons ago. So those kind of dynamics, I don't know how you solve some of them, but truly I think everyone should feel safe in that environment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'll answer that in two different ways. First of all, in general, a healthy environment for learning is one where students feel safe, where teachers feel respected and valued, and students also have choices about what classes to take or how to develop their potential fully. And at the same time, they have the support to be able to get their educational needs met as well as their emotional needs met within that day of school. A couple of years ago, I was involved in doing a needs assessment at the Saline High School, and so I would say that specifically at our school, and I'm talking now about the high school, but it also applies to possibly other schools in our district, is that we need to provide a more accepting and inclusive environment for our kids, a place that is bully-proof, where students can really feel safe, and all students, whether they're from the LGBT community, or whether they're a special needs child, or whether they are simply someone who is different in some other way, that they feel they can go to school and spend their time simply focusing on learning and not have to worry about other issues.
Okay, a safe environment, of course, is an accepting environment. In a school system, it's one that challenges the students and allows them to ask questions without fear, recognizes individual interests. All the children are supported, all of the teachers are happy to be where they are and feel that the community supports them. A happy teacher makes a happy classroom, I believe. Just real support for curiosity, questions, individual differences, all of those good things that everybody has mentioned, I would agree with. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kayla Holston, and I'm a junior at the high school. Should we find ourselves in another budget shortfall, what would your priorities and/or strategies be when it comes to balancing our district budget?
Thank you. I think, first of all, we must be proactive.
I'm first, yeah, sorry. But if you want to answer, this is an extremely tough situation since we've been through this in the last couple of years. You basically get X pot and you have to spend Y. You have to maintain a little bit of reserve for an emergency. I guess you'd have to start prioritizing what do you feel, you know, are you going to get the most value for your dollar? I mean, is it, you know, lower class sizes? We don't know that contributes to better learning. Salaries, of course, benefits, of course, are out there. And I think we can do a better job on some of those. Truthfully, I'd like to, if I'm elected, convene a committee or a task force that might look at alternate means of compensation. The current contracts that we have with the unions are, I don't know how far back they go, but the language in them hasn't changed. They're, in my mind, restrictive in some places. And I think we might be able to do some things to reward teachers in a different way, to not change their pay and do some other kind of different things. I mean, there's stuff out there that, you know, private companies do. You know, we get some HR people in that have a different point of view, and I think that would help with the budget overall.
My turn on. All right, so I think, first of all, we must act on our school board and as a community to be proactive about not finding ourselves in another budget shortfall. I was at a school board meeting the other night and heard that this year we have come out of a $1.7 million deficit in our structural budget and into a $44,000 surplus. Now, that's not a whole lot, but I think that by staying proactive, keeping on looking long-term and looking at sustainable solutions, and unfortunately, I think that means these days that we have to look outside of public funding dollars as well to be creative with solutions for the economic solutions for our district, such as partnering with businesses in our community, such as perhaps partnering with the city on their initiatives to help us with our school needs. But in any event, if we were to find ourselves still in a shortfall, I would say safety, number one, is the priority, and maintaining our teacher quality and educational quality would be my top priority as well.
Okay. Yes, I agree. The finances have been cut in public education around the country to a near dangerous point, and that we are going to have to look at alternative sources of funding. I lost my train, I left the station. Okay, the quality, I think, again, it's important that we maintain the quality of our staff members and that we continue to look at the safety of for our children. For example, we need to maintain a safe environment in terms of who we hire as staff members and in terms of buses and transportation, that sort of safety as well. If it came down to, I'm glad to hear also that that we're in the black at this point, at least a little bit. But if it came down to more issues and more cuts, I would hope that we could dialogue with the community to help set priorities, because you can only stretch $1, as you said, so far, and then we have to look at other means.
I think priority would be making sure as much money as possible goes back into the classroom, and then going down from there. I think it's very important that we are proactive now and look at ways to get creative and collaborate and share resources where we can so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation in the future.
So first of all, we're going to take a break after this question, and if you would like to ask questions during the break, to write them down out there, and we'll take care of that. I'm Patrick Birdsong, I'm a senior at the high school, and my question is, what is your position on the privatization of support staff?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to make that mistake again. My position on privatization is that that should be our very last resort. As I mentioned earlier, I think we should be looking proactively at funding sources. We have a lot of good community partners, and we have seen in recent times how schools, public schools, can group together to find more creative alternatives than privatization. And I think we need to be looking at those creative alternatives even now. I think privatization can be helpful in the short term in saving some dollars, but it can lead to some bigger issues in the long term. So that would be our very, very last resort, and I would not be in favor of privatization of services.
Can you just explain support staff? What does that mean?
Support staff, as in paraeducators, bus drivers, mechanics,
Actually, the law is every employee in the district except for the teachers is eligible to be privatized. Is that correct, Mr. Green? Thank you.
Okay. All right. I believe that it's very important to support our community with and our community members, that it's a matter of safety as well as finance, to have people who work in our school district who care about and who are invested in our students. Coming from other districts, I've had the experience when substitute teaching, for example, was privatized, that there have been some individuals that I know would have never gotten hired through the school district, but were hired through the private company. The people who are working in our district have given a lot, and I think we deserve to give them back. Our support staff has given up a lot over the years, and in fact, in talking with various members of the support staff, I was speaking to a woman who's been a bus driver for 30 years, who earns $19,000 a year, and who has to pay $15,000 for insurance. Well, she's not working for much cash in that one. So to be able to support these people in any way we can would help our community, both economically, and I think it's a safety issue. I see it as a big primary safety issue.
I would have to agree that I think privatizing would be a last resort. I think it's important to try and keep the jobs within the community if possible. So I agree, both of them in regards to that. But I think, you know, if we get to that point, it's something that would have to be looked at, unfortunately.
The support staff in the last couple of years have taken probably the brunt of cuts in the district, and I think that they do a tremendous job. And privatization, like Smith said, it gets a little bit of kick at the beginning, but in the long run, most of the studies show it does not pay off. I agree, everything always has to be looked at and prioritized, but I generally am not in favor of it.
All right, so at this point we're going to break, and if anyone has any questions they'd like to write down, there's slips of paper outside in the hall, so please do so.
My name is Rafael Caruso. I am a junior at Saline High School, and the question I would ask is, what are your views on foreign language program in Saline, and is there anything you would adjust?
Okay, thank you. Well, foreign language is a wonderful channel for learning of all kinds. In the foundation, I know, is interested in supporting an early language development program in Saline schools for young learners, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful prospect, because research shows that not only does it help with general language development, it shows it helps with general learning in general. It just turns on the brain and gets everything firing in many different directions. As far as languages go, in Saline, I think we should have as many as we can afford to have. And of course, money always comes down to the bottom line of the issue. I think that collaborating with other school districts can be helpful as well, hopefully, and also making it easier perhaps to work with adjoining universities to help support or offer classes. I think we need to make that a little easier thing to accomplish between the Saline area schools and the universities. I know Milan and Ann Arbor have a pretty easy, facile way of doing that, so kids can go further within their language and receive college credits for doing that. I think we in Saline need to focus a little bit more on how to become a better member with our higher institutions of learning. So I would like to see, oh, I'm out of time, I apologize.
I think the World Language Program is a wonderful program. My son, sophomore, who's here now, and he's totally embarrassed that I'm speaking about him, so I apologize. But he started taking French in 7th grade, and I think it's just been a wonderful thing. I'm currently a trustee on the foundation, and I'm very excited about the World Languages Program that we're working to raise money on this year, so that they can start it at a younger level, because it does make such a difference in all areas of learning. So I think it's wonderful and should be encouraged. I think it's necessary for, as you move on into college, and it's such a global world. Everything is so accessible now. When I was in high school, it wasn't as easy to get over to France or Spain, and kids nowadays can go like that. So I think it's a wonderful thing that should be taken advantage of.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the earlier you start a language, I think the easier it is for students to learn. I took Spanish in high school and then took German in college, and it used to really irritate me on the German test because I could remember the Spanish word, but I could not remember the German word, so I didn't fare very well sometimes. But yeah, like Karen said, in the global business world, knowing a second language is a phenomenal thing to have. There's, a global trade economy. I wish we could offer more languages than we do. My kids have all taken French, and that one sails by me, so difficult to learn, but an excellent language anyway. So yeah, I'm glad the foundation chose that this year. It's a good thing for the Saline area schools.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of the above. But I think also it's very true that learning an additional language these days is very much a part of being a 21st century learner, and that's part of our school's mission as well. And I'm very glad that the foundation is supporting that at the level of elementary school, and hopefully that will start next year. I believe right now we have 3 languages offered at our middle school, which is very good. And I think the issue with offering more is perhaps at the higher level at high school is perhaps money. In fact, I'm almost certain it's money. And I think so we do, for students who would like more choice or who would want to expand into language outside of a European language, perhaps we need to look into options such as collaborating with other school districts or collaborating with our several excellent universities that are in the area. I do think that having a strong language program in Saline will also help us with our enrollment goals.
Hello again, I'm Dan Turner, I'm a senior. So question 6 is, what is your opinion on the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of each day?
Who starts? Me? I think it's yours. Me?
Yes.
I believe so. Sorry. Yeah, I know there's a lot of controversy around that, and I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's a good thing. I think everyone should be given the opportunity to recite the pledge every day. I do. I think we live in a wonderful country, and I think we should be proud of that. And I think giving our kids the opportunity to be proud of that every day is a good thing. So that's my opinion.
I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of students these days get their version of war from a video game. They don't really appreciate the wars of the past, and they don't have any. Like my dad was the tail end of World War II, so these people make a great sacrifice for us, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is a very controversial topic, and I will be frank. I think that it's a real privilege to be able to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. We already have that happening right up to our elementary school levels, I believe, right up to middle school. I think that while it is very patriotic and a way of teaching patriotism to recite the pledge, it is also very patriotic to have a choice. And not to be placed in a position where you might find yourself being shunned or unaccepted if you were to make the choice not to recite the pledge. So I think in the interest of students' safety, and also I think as a person with a lot of background in child development, I have to say that for middle schoolers and high schoolers to add something to their day where they would be asked to do another thing that they have no choice about might be counterproductive to what we're trying to teach. So I think patriotism can be instilled and should be instilled, but perhaps in a more way that gives choices. For instance, my son Aaron took part in the constitutional speech contest twice in a row for the American Legion and was very successful. And I think that taught him a lot about the country and the Constitution. So programs like that I think would be more beneficial.
Okay. I believe that if the end goal of saying the Pledge of Allegiance is to educate and instill patriotism, that there are better ways than just reciting the pledge. I believe that if that were to be instituted, and it looks like it will be, that a good place to accomplish that might be in a government class, where not only are you reciting the pledge, but you're understanding what you're saying along the way and what that means and why that's so important to various individuals. So I think it's not just a matter of recitation, it's a matter of understanding and, again, education.
Hello, my name is Erica Myers, and I'm a senior at the high school. And I have question 7. What are your opinions on technology in the classroom, and how do you think it should be incorporated?
Okay, I've been working in technology for 3 years now, so I'm all for any bit of technology that we can put into the classroom. When I started, I sat at a machine and punched out cards, and now I can do a wizard thing and have a database up and running and get some reports out in an hour. So technology changes every day. It's just, you know, Mrs. Davis's bring your own device thing in a board meeting about a month ago is a great thing. Kids love their devices, they love their technology. It's got to be a limit on it. It's not 24/7, is it, Daniel? So, yeah, any bit we can get in here, I think, will be beneficial to anyone in the 21st century skill set.
I agree, technology is the wave of the future, and actually it's the wave of the present as well. But I think that leveraging technology is a great idea. I really liked the presentation we had a few weeks ago at the board from a middle school teacher who established the Bring Your BYOT program in her classroom and is really utilizing technology to teach some of the concepts in her class. So I think leveraging technology is a great idea. I think that we need to be careful that we're not trying to put a computer in the place of a teacher. I think there are some very beneficial online learning experiences that can be had. Again, to give my own child's example, he was in one class that was great and he learned a lot, and another online class in the science area where he was very disappointed and did not feel like he got anything out of it. So I think the answer to that question is yes, we should leverage technology, but we should be careful in how we introduce it and to maximize its benefit for the students' learning. I think we should ask students about their experiences in what they're doing currently, and that would be very valuable in helping us figure out what to do exactly in technology. Thank you.
As in all things that we present to our children, I think we need to be very watchful and careful of the programs that we are recommending, make sure that they are useful programs that actually are interactive and not just a sitting in front of the screen kind of situation. Also, I think it would be important that once a child goes through a program that we get feedback from that student as to how they felt about it, because they are the one who is the learner, and I think that would be important information for us to have. We will need to have some, it sounds like, just hearing about the future of testing in coming down from the state. There's going to be a lot of technology involved in the actual administration of that test, where a student will be working at the computer to answer the questions. And I believe to make that fair, we will need to have some programs that reflect the state mandated program so that our children can be successful.
I think whether we like it or not, right now our kids are learning from technology every day, all kinds of things maybe we don't want them to learn, and things maybe we do want them to learn. I think by not incorporating it into our curriculum, we're being irresponsible, because it is, as Smith said, the present. I'm sitting here with this phone that I barely know how to use, that my kids pull out and they're able to look up anything at any time, and that's an amazing thing. The availability of information now and the things that they know because of technology. And I think that's something we should embrace carefully and show them how to use it properly.
I'm Kayla Holston again. Question number 8 will be, what would you like to see Saline's alternative education programs look like? For instance, would you support increased online learning opportunities, alternative teaching strategies, change to special ed, and etc.?
Smith. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think our alternative program has greatly improved under the guidance of Carol Melcher, and our graduation rates have gone up from believe 37% and 97%. I think that we do need to look at all kinds of flexible and innovative teaching approaches for our alternative learners because they are there because they have alternative styles of learning. So online certainly can be incorporated, again, with care so that students are being able to use it to their benefit. And I think also the other piece about alternative education is that I think we need to look at the stigma surrounding that and perhaps try to reduce some of that. Sort of like what they've done in Ann Arbor with an entire school dedicated to alternative learners that people are wanting to get into. So I think it's a great population of kids, and we should certainly encourage them to learn in any way that they possibly can.
I would agree that we owe a debt of thanks to Carol Melcher for helping with our alternative program. It's a program that I haven't had an opportunity to visit, unfortunately, but I would love to in the future. Again, it needs to be a program that provides real alternatives for people with different learning styles, and we somehow need to help it be seen, again, in a positive light, because it is a very positive move for the students that are in there who choose or are placed in the program. So I would like to take a closer look myself to see what we can do, and I agree that Ann Arbor's program is very popular and sought after, and I'd like to see what we could do to add to our program.
I would like to agree that we are very fortunate. We do have a wonderful program, and my understanding is Carol Melcher does do a fabulous job. My experience with alternative ed has been through the foundation and the grants that I've seen come through for the program. And so I do see that they are using new techniques and technology to help the students learn in ways that they're most comfortable. So I encourage that and hope to see that continue going forward.
Well, 4 votes for Carol Melcher because she does do a great job with the alternative high school. I think every student learns at a different rate, method. They all have their own ways they grasp information. So for Saline area schools to provide as many different ways that we do for kids to get an education, I think is a great thing. And I think we should expand it as much as we can. And I think that's where online learning comes in. Everyone has their own pace, their own grasp of the knowledge. They need to loop back and review something, and I think it's a good thing. And the alternative program is since Carol took over, is making some great strides and something that needs to be paid attention to a little more offerings maybe.
And I'm a junior. Should a conflict arise among members of the school board, how would you go about solving the problem?
Oh gosh, I think that's me first. Oh yay. Okay, well, I think that having an open mind and an open discussion is always the best answer to problems like these. Just a matter of mutual respect and making sure that we respect each other's point of view while being able to listen to another's point of view is probably the secret to the entire issue. Just mutual respect, courtesy, all of the things that we learned in kindergarten, I think will help a great deal.
I think it's not a question of should, it's a question of when. I think it's natural. I think not everybody's going to always agree on everything. There's 7 different people. 7 different people on the board, 7 different personalities, 7 different opinions, and I think it's very important that everybody respects each other and listens and tries to come to consensus.
7 people, 7 opinions. Yeah, having been there for 4 years prior, there is, I guess, a little, I mean, sometimes I know there's been this year some talk about some of the public board meetings and some of the discussion that went on being a little contentious. So I would invite you one time to come to a closed-door meeting if you really want to see contention sometimes. But I mean, I agree. The board should have the discussion. Everyone's viewpoint should be taken, listened to, accepted, and others should listen to others' viewpoint. I mean, the board is the face of the district, and not to say that they all should agree 100% of the time, because that's why we have 7 people, to get that difference. But it needs to be cleaned up a little bit, I'd say.
I think it's true that in general the tone, the conversation around public education is becoming more adversarial, and sometimes that has been reflected in our own school board interactions. And I think that coming to the school board with clarity about why you're there and your purpose being to elevate the level of public education in your school district can lend itself to some common ground. So I think in cases of controversy, we need to look at where is the common ground. And are we talking about things that are important for our kids, for our students? How is what we're talking about going to impact them? And what are the best possible outcomes for them? And if we can, 7 people, 7 opinions is true, but can we all keep our eye on that one goal, is what is best for our kids? And I think if we can do that, then we can have respectful dialogue, then we can have differences in opinion, but then I think we can still resolve the issues.
We will now take a 3-minute break. I'm Raphael Peroso, I'm a junior, and the question is, as a school board member, how would you make an effort to communicate with the students in Saline?
I'd like to phone a friend.
Helpline.
That's a really good question. I think right now I know that there's a student representative on the board, and it's 1 student. And honestly, I'm not sure how the students get information from the school board as it is. I know the meetings I've been at, there haven't been a lot of students in attendance, unless they were there for AP Gov. So I think it would be trying to encourage participation, maybe hosting student forums where you can come in and speak to your issues. You know, that's talking to students and finding out what they would want, what would interest them, and how they would best engage with the board, I think would be important.
We met with the Spectrum group about a month ago, and it's always fascinating to sit and talk to the students because they have sometimes different perceptions about what the board is all about, and they're always full of ideas, always full of fun, and it was a fun group. We had a good time. And it's true, over my 4 years on the board, towards the end of the semester, we get a lot of kids at the board meeting because they had to get the paper signed. And I'm not really sure, you know, I guess engaging them more, we value their opinion. I mean, they know more what's going on sometimes than we do, so that information channel is an important one. especially when it talks about, you know, the culture, the climate of any particular building. Yeah, I'd like to see some, I don't know, regular, you know, talking, I mean, conversation, two-way kind of things with them, because we're here for them. We want to make, you know, their educational experience the best we can. So, I mean, within limits, their ideas would be, as long as it follows policy.
I think that students are one of the most important parts of the community, and as a general rule, I think board members, if I were a board member, I would seek out different groups in the community that are open to communicating with board members and encourage their input, and that would include student groups as well. I think there are a number of student groups, and we've met with students from Spectrum, and I'm familiar with some students from Strive. But I think there are a number of student groups, and I think one of the concerns or issues becomes how to communicate with all the groups. So I think that I would try to perhaps have some joint meetings, if that were possible, with all of your different schedules. That might not always work, but that might be an idea, to get student groups together to communicate with board members, and perhaps student groups could communicate about what they would like to communicate to board members prior to those meetings. I also think that I would try to use more technology in communicating with students, since that seems to be a preferred mode for this generation, and perhaps use the media that exists more effectively to communicate with students.
Yes, I agree. Using technology is certainly something that's very immediately at hand and comes to mind when it comes to communicating with young adults. I do also understand and support the idea that the school board has instituted a policy of assigning a school board member to a school to go in and visit and see what's happening, and I think that's a prime opportunity to meet. This is a very, well, it's not as big as a lot of districts, I guess, but it seems to me that the high school, for example, is a very large unit, and that we need to focus more on the ability of kids to have someone to talk to when they have concerns, and to understand who it is they can go to when they have a concern. I guess the question was addressing the school board in particular. We have regular meetings. I would hope that we can be a comfortable enough group so that concerned students could come together and present some thoughts to us. I think we should maybe seek out that kind of group communication at the meetings. But also I think the visits to the schools directly is a prime opportunity. And again, you know, we all have email addresses and whatnot, and I've enjoyed working immensely with everybody. Yep. I promise my closing will be very short.
Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm a senior at Saline High School, and my question is, in your opinion, what is the most vital aspect of public education?
I think turning out a well-rounded student should be our primary goal of a public education. Having had the opportunity to be a somewhat supervisory type person in the private world, when I would interview people for positions, I always kind of looked for a person who was technical but had other kinds of skills that, you know, a lot of times on projects you need people, we used to call them wild ass idea meetings, because it didn't matter how crazy it was or how different it might be, if it would solve our problem, we needed something like that. And projects, the way, at least in the business I'm in, we collaborate a lot. And if you can't participate in that kind of collaboration, you're left out somewhere sometimes, and everyone has good ideas. We need to hear them, and we need to prepare the kids for that learning. A lot of 21st century skills meetings are all done technology-wise on Skyping, and so as well-rounded as that person can be, I think, athletics, education, community service, the whole gamut would make the best public student person.
I think the most vital aspect is providing a quality skill set and having that be accessible to all, regardless of socioeconomic status. Val over there and I have talked about if you ask students to bring technology, then what happens to those who don't have it? And so I think it is very vital that our public education have the means to provide the resources that would help provide the skills for the 21st century. And that those skills be provided regardless of what socioeconomic status or any other category that the student comes from. I think that it needs to be a skill set that allows people to be lifelong learners, that has, so that opportunities can open up to them no matter what school they're going to, and that they can become good citizens.
Okay, I think the most important part of public education is to make sure that it remains public, that it addresses all of the individuals in the community without regard to income, ability, or even the family's ability to support that student. I think we need to be, that a public school system needs to be supported by a proud community and staff members who are aware of the awesome gift of being a part of free and public education.
I think the most vital aspect is preparing every student for the next stages of their life, whether they go on to college, whether they join the military, whether they get a career, college, military, career. They want to join the Peace Corps for a year. I think it's necessary that every student leaves here prepared for what they decide to do after school. Thank you.
All right, well, that concludes our second portion of our pre-written questions. Now we will move on to asking some questions that the audience has written down for us. There were several questions to choose from, and we appreciate all of your opportunities for us to look through those, and we have chosen 3. So here is the first one. Oh, and I'm Natalie Wysocki, by the way, and I'm a senior. What is your opinion on Proposal 2, or the incorporation of collective bargaining into the state constitution?
My yours are great. Oh, wow. That's a very controversial topic. I think personally, I think this question is coming up now because there have been some threats to collective bargaining. This has never been an issue in the past, but it is becoming an issue at this point. And I think that we need to respect the rights of individuals to organize. I think I can see the positive aspect of that, as in if it were in the Constitution, then it would be a right that would never be able to be taken away.
Okay, I am a strong believer in collective bargaining. I think if you look historically across our country and through the Industrial Revolution, etc., the collective bargaining units have helped keep our country together, to keep it growing, to keep it healthy, to keep it safe. So I am a big supporter of collective bargaining.
That's quite a question, and I knew it was coming. And you know, I don't have a problem with collective bargaining. I don't have a problem with the unions. I think the proposal as it's written would do more harm than good.
I also, I think there's enough. I think the real issue is that lately the legislature has been passing laws that usurp collective bargaining issues. I don't think this is a good method to go about changing some of that. I think there's enough laws that protect collective bargaining right now. As a former union member, I appreciated my union representation when I got into trouble a few times at work. So, but I think it's the wrong way to get at it right now. There's so many constitutional changes going on right now that I think it's not a good idea the way it's been presented.
Our next question is asking your opinion on a 2-semester school year with 6 periods in a day or an alternative scheduling structure.
Can you clarify that, Natalie? What kind of alternative?
Any kind of alternative structure that you may think would be a better choice or may benefit our school district. Because right now we have a 5-period trimester schedule, and if you were to move it to a different day schedule, I suppose they're asking what you would move it to.
Is it my turn already? Okay. Yes, I think that a 2-semester system is a good system. It's one that I think most of us were experienced when we were going through school. I think taking many classes can be too demanding and stressful on students. But beyond that, I've always kind of liked the idea of a 45-15 plan, where we would be in school for 45 days, have 3 weeks off, come back to school for 45 days. And the reason why I like that, and it would be a year-round proposition, the reason why I support that way of working is that so often, particularly at elementary school level, the children lose so much after the long summer breaks and vacations that they have to spend much of the first semester relearning. And I think this would be a very nice solution where you would have time for teachers to rekindle, kids to rekindle, have a little break, and begin again afresh.
I guess my feeling is if it's not broke, why fix it? I look at the trimester. When I was in high school, I was on trimesters, and I guess I don't know that there's an issue with it, and if there is, I guess I would have to look into what the issues are or what the concerns are. So I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer that. I think it's a good program now. I think it gives diversity to your schedule, and I think it seems to be working from what I can tell. So.
I guess one of my 2 older kids were in the high school, they had the block schedule still, and from their experience and my impression of that was that there was too much time because they seemed like the teaching stopped at a point. They spent a lot of time just doing homework at the end. And then we went to the current schedule, and I think people felt kind of the opposite effect, that they were cramming a lot in and it took 3 semesters. I have heard some talk about going back to semesters. I guess I would have to look at, some studies to see why, get some student input. I guess the last thing we want to do is, whatever makes them learn the best, I guess. And it's not all up to the students because they would probably choose one long day of one class and be done with it. But, yeah, I mean, I guess have to look at some studies and see what works best. There are also some economic issues about staffing that, with the different models of scheduling.
I mentioned that I did a needs assessment at the high school about 2 years ago, and as part of that, there was discussion about the trimesters versus semesters. And what I heard consistently from all the students in the various groups was that the trimesters definitely seemed to be more stressful on the students. I came awake, and the other point I heard was that it seemed too fast to really absorb all the learning that needed to be done in those 12 weeks. So I came awake quite convinced that a semester schedule would lend itself to much better learning, depth of learning, opportunities to absorb what's being taught. I think, again, we do have to look at the financial issues. Is it a 6 period day versus a 7 period day? I think in terms of retaining of learning, the 45-15 plan is also a decent one, but again, that involves a lot of change because then you have to coordinate that across school districts and sports and such. But I think I would certainly favor going to a semester type plan. I'm not sure whether it would be 6 or 7 periods. 7 periods offer more choice, but there can be some potential transportation issues. So we need to look at all that in the context of costs as well as education. Thank you.
All right, this will be our final question to the candidates, and upon the conclusion of their answers, they will each have 1 minute to give their closing statements, and then we will finally conclude the debate with a few words from Strive's president, Isabella Braccazzini. So here's the final question. A couple of candidates indicated that they feel there's a need for change. Please share your views on what currently should be changed and how you would go about driving the necessary changes.
Okay, a need for change. Well, I think a huge need for change amongst the whole country is to shine a brighter light on education and to appreciate all that we do have and all that we have done, and just take a step back and a more positive look. As far as immediate changes, we've discussed so many things tonight. For example, shared learning with higher level community organizations, as in the universities or the junior college. That's an old-fashioned word, but I've forgotten the other one. We have the intermediate school district has started the IB program, which I think has opened up the concept of a deeper kind of learning. So there are many, many issues that remain to be looked at, but I hope we can look at them in a positive way and supportive way to our educational community.
I think right now, I think there's been a lot of focus over the last few years, necessarily so, on the finances of the district. I think a nice change right now would be to focus more on education and the students in the classroom, and I know that's always underlying, but it would be nice to return some of the focus to that. I also think there needs to be some changes on the board level, and having a cohesive board that works well together, that can affect change. Thank you.
I'm sure, and I don't know this for a fact, but most studies would say people resist change. Every day I go into work, I'm hoping that only 10% of my day will be off kilter from what I plan to do because something changed overnight. And a lot of the changes that happen in the district come from different levels, state curriculum mandates, federal mandates. So I think change needs to be embraced, and I agree that, you know, we've had a bit of focus on finances lately, and we need to get back to the kids. But I'm not really sure what, I mean, I'd like to get some input on what changes everyone thinks. I mean, we're successful as we are. We shouldn't rest on what we're doing because there's always something new, something more innovative out there. If you go look at the foundation displays out there, they're still there when we leave. Our teachers do a great job of finding innovation and change and introduce that to their classrooms. So there's a lot of work to do that could make the whole school experience, I think, better for all kids.
Okay, change. I agree with some of the other people here that the biggest change that we need to see is to bring the focus back to what is relevant for the education of the children in our school district. I think there has been a lot of talk about finances, and necessarily so, but I think it's time to shine the light, as Diane said, on the issues such as what is happening in the classrooms, how are they learning, what are the class sizes, how are they affecting the learning, what can we do about assessments that are being mandated by the state that are not only for the teachers but also new standards for learning for students. And those are all positive. Especially the Common Core curriculum, I think, will be a very positive change for our schools, but I think we need to look at how are these changes going to be funded. And I think one change needs to be proactive advocates for public education and funding coming along with that versus simply responding as our very able administrators respond to the mandates that are coming down. I think as school board, or as a member of the school board, I would advocate for more proactive participation in issues of advocacy. Thank you.
Oh, I get to go first? Awesome. Okay, I would like to thank you, Strive, for doing this. You guys did a fabulous job, so thank you for your hard work in putting this together. I'd like to thank everyone that attended. Actually, this is great to see everyone here. My kids look really excited to be up there. Through this process, I've been asked several times, why are you running for school board? And every time I'm stumped. I don't know, why am I running for school board? Paul and I met with a couple student groups and community groups through this process, and I've realized that's why I'm running for school board. The opportunity that this has provided for us to meet people in the community, the students, the stakeholders, has just been priceless. And I'm grateful to be in this district. I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to be here, and I thank everybody. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming. A couple of years ago at one of the graduation ceremonies, someone was having an issue with their uniform, their gown. One of the board members, and the woman, I don't know, secretary, whoever that was fixing it, came into the room and said, Can you take that in there? I can't go in there, the board's in there. And I'm thinking that's an issue because the board should be open to everyone in the district. Everyone should have an input. The board should be out there. We're not scary individuals. We need this, a lot of dialogue, and I think that's important. Another important consideration right now is there will be no board election next year. This is a new law, so board elections will only be every 2 years now, 6-year terms. So in 18 short months, we'll be back to the bargaining table since we only had 2-year contracts this year. So there's a kind of a new dynamic I'd like to see on the board, a more outward-facing face of the district. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've had some great questions tonight, and I want to thank Strive as well for organizing this very well-organized forum. I think tonight we've heard a lot of discussion around issues in our district. We've heard how a lot of us are similar in our views, and we've heard some differences as well. I think the one thing I'd like to point out is that there is a big difference, I feel, in the vision between our two teams in regards to public education. Public education matters. Public education is what this country is founded on, and public education is what a lot of communities are built around. And my hope is that no matter how this election turns out, that the conversations around the education of our children will continue to happen at every level in our community. Diane and I have been out walking and talking to people, knocking on doors, and through this process have learned a lot about what people are concerned with. I think that's something we would like to keep going if we were to be elected. But as I said, even if we're not elected, I hope that these conversations keep going because our children matter.
As I said, I keep my summary short, and I will. I would like to thank everybody who has worked with us during our campaign, taken time away from their busy schedules to meet with us, help clarify what it means to be a school board member and what the issues of the community are, so that we'll be ready should the occasion arise on day one to be a productive members of the school board. I would appreciate, oh gosh, I'm getting my 30 seconds already. Dang. I would appreciate your vote of confidence and support for my candidacy, and I would also hope that it would be nice to have you help Smith and I shine a proud light on our community and its commitment, its historical commitment actually, to public education. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes tonight's debate. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and also the candidates for sharing with us their different opinions, their background. We hope that this has made your decision a little bit easier, and if you'd like to give us any feedback, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.